"Daddy, why is she sleeping here?" asked the little girl. The millionaire single dad took her home. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a cold night in the city, and the wind howled through the empty streets as Liam Parker, a successful and wealthy businessman, walked back to his luxurious penthouse after a long day of meetings. As he entered his home, the warmth from the fireplace greeted him, but his heart felt anything but warm. He had been a single father for 5 years, ever since the tragic death of his wife. Raising his daughter alone had not been easy, but Liam had done his best. His daughter, Emily, was the center of his world. She was smart, bright, and full of life. Yet her innocence and curiosity sometimes led her to ask questions that made him uncomfortable. One evening, as Liam was finishing dinner, his young daughter suddenly looked up from her plate and asked, "Daddy, why is she sleeping here?" Liam froze, his fork midair, as his gaze shifted to the couch in the living room. There, curled up on the couch, was a woman he had never seen before. She was lying under a blanket, looking exhausted and helpless. Her clothes were tattered, and she looked as though she hadn't had a good night's sleep in weeks. Liam's first instinct was to act, but before he could say anything, his daughter's innocent voice cut through the silence. "Is she staying with us, Daddy?" The question hung in the air, and Liam felt his chest tighten. He wasn't sure how to explain the situation. Just a few hours ago, he had found the woman lying outside his building, shivering in the cold. Without thinking, he had brought her inside and offered her some food and warmth. Now, his daughter had noticed her, and the reality of the situation was sinking in. Liam took a deep breath and crouched down beside his daughter. "Sweetheart," he began, "she's just staying here for a little while. She needs help, and we're going to do what we can to help her." Emily looked up at him with wide eyes, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "But why, Daddy? Why is she sleeping here?" Liam smiled softly and gently stroked his daughter's hair. "Sometimes, people go through tough times, Emily. And when that happens, we need to help them. It's the right thing to do." His daughter nodded, but Liam could tell that the situation was weighing heavily on her mind. She was still too young to fully understand the complexities of the world, but her heart was pure, and her questions were always honest. As Liam stood up and moved toward the woman on the couch, he couldn't help but wonder how this encounter would change his life. Little did he know, this simple act of kindness would soon lead to a series of events that would alter the course of his and his daughter's future forever. After Liam explained to his daughter that the woman on the couch was simply in need of help, he could sense the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had always prided himself on being the protector of his little girl, yet here he was, offering refuge to a stranger. As he sat down at the edge of the couch, he took a closer look at the woman. Her face was pale, and her body looked frail under the blanket. She had short, tangled hair that framed a face marked by exhaustion. The cold night air from outside still clung to her, but inside, she seemed to relax just a little, as if the warmth was beginning to ease the tension in her muscles. Liam reached for the blanket and adjusted it around her, careful not to disturb her. He didn't know how long she had been out there, but it was clear she had been through something difficult. His thoughts drifted back to when he first found her earlier that evening. He had been coming home after a grueling day at work, and the sight of her lying on the cold pavement outside his building had stopped him in his tracks. He had never been one to ignore someone in need, especially when he saw how vulnerable she appeared. At first, he had been unsure what to do. Should he call the police? Should he simply walk away? But something inside him urged him to act, to offer help, no matter how unusual it might seem. He knelt beside her, gently waking her up. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing a deep sense of weariness and a hint of fear. "Are you okay?" he had asked, his voice soft yet firm. She nodded weakly, but he could tell that she wasn't all right. That's when he made the decision to bring her inside, offering her a hot meal and a place to rest. But now, as he sat by her side, Liam was filled with uncertainty. Who was she? What had happened to her? And most importantly, why had she been left in such a vulnerable state? He shook off the thoughts for a moment, focusing on the present. He could feel his daughter's curious gaze still lingering on the scene before them. Emily had always been a perceptive child, and even at her young age, she could tell that something was amiss. He could sense that she had more questions, but she wasn't quite ready to voice them. Liam took a deep breath, trying to settle his racing thoughts. It was moments like this that reminded him just how much he still had to learn about life and the world around him. His responsibilities as a father had never felt heavier, and yet, his love for Emily pushed him to always do the right thing, no matter how difficult the circumstances. As the night wore on, Liam decided it was best to let the woman rest. He quietly told Emily that she should head to bed, and with a reluctant nod, she kissed him goodnight and retreated to her room. Once the house was quiet, Liam sat by the woman, keeping a watchful eye on her. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of protectiveness rising within him. But he also knew that there was more to her story than he could yet understand. After what felt like hours, the woman stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, this time more slowly, and she looked around in confusion before meeting Liam's gaze. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "You're at my home," Liam replied gently. "You were outside, and I brought you in. You've been through something difficult, haven't you?" She hesitated, her lips trembling as she tried to gather her thoughts. I don't know what happened," she murmured. "I don't remember much." Liam nodded, his heart aching for her. It was clear that she was struggling with something, but what? He wanted to help, but he didn't know how. "You're safe here," he reassured her. "You don't have to explain anything right now. Just rest." The woman nodded faintly, her eyes closing again as she drifted into a fitful sleep. Liam sat there, lost in thought. What had brought her to this point, and what was he supposed to do next? The weight of the unknown pressed on him. But one thing was certain, he couldn't simply turn his back on her now. As the night stretched on, Liam made a vow to himself. He would help this woman, however he could. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning of a journey that would change his life, and Emily's, forever. The following morning, Liam woke to the sound of the house settling into a new day. The sun had barely begun to rise, casting a soft light through the curtains of his living room. He rubbed his eyes, trying to shake off the tiredness from the restless night. He glanced over at the couch where the woman still lay asleep. She looked peaceful now, the warmth of the house helping to soothe the exhaustion that had been etched on her face the night before. Emily had already left for school, and Liam had the house to himself, allowing him some time to think. His thoughts turned to the woman. He had no idea who she was, or what had led her to be left in such a vulnerable state. But he couldn't ignore the pull to help her, to try to understand her story and offer a sense of security. He stood up quietly, careful not to wake her just yet, and made his way to the kitchen to prepare some breakfast. As the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. It wasn't just the warmth of the coffee or the quiet of the morning. It was something deeper. He had taken a step into the unknown the night before, bringing this stranger into his home, and now he couldn't bring himself to turn away. When he returned to the living room, the woman had stirred slightly, but she didn't open her eyes. Liam hesitated for a moment before sitting down gently on the armrest of the couch. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice low so as not to startle her. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, her gaze confused for a brief moment before it settled on him. "Good morning," she whispered back, her voice still hoarse from the strain of whatever ordeal she had gone through. She shifted slightly, pulling the blanket up around her for comfort. "I must have fallen asleep," she said, sounding a little embarrassed. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're not intruding," Liam reassured her with a kind smile. "You're welcome to rest here as long as you need." She sat up slightly, her body still seeming weak, and looked around the room. The warm lighting and the quiet atmosphere seemed to offer her some comfort. She met Liam's eyes again, and for a moment, there was a silence between them. "Thank you," she said, her voice almost inaudible. "I don't know what happened. I don't remember much." Liam studied her for a moment, feeling the weight of her words. She was clearly struggling with something, and he had no idea how deep her pain went. "It's okay," he said gently. "You don't have to explain anything right now. I'm just glad you're safe here." She nodded, but her eyes seemed distant, as if she were trying to piece together fragments of a memory she couldn't quite reach. Liam knew he couldn't force her to open up. Whatever she had been through, it was something she would have to share on her own terms. "Would you like some breakfast?" he offered, standing up and walking toward the kitchen. "I made some coffee, and I can whip up something simple." She hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. "I'm not sure I can eat," she said, her voice soft and uncertain. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Liam replied firmly. "Please, just take your time. I'm here to help." She seemed to relax a little at his words, though she still seemed hesitant. "Thank you," she repeated, her eyes glistening with a mix of gratitude and something else Liam couldn't quite place. He made his way back to the kitchen, leaving her some space. He knew she needed time to gather herself, but he also felt the growing desire to know more about her, to understand what had brought her to this point. As he prepared breakfast, he found himself wondering what he could do to help her. He didn't know her story, but he felt an undeniable connection to her. It wasn't just the compassion he had for her situation. It was something deeper, something he couldn't quite define. When he returned with a plate of toast and fruit, the woman was sitting up on the couch, her arms wrapped around her knees. She looked at him, her expression a little softer now. "I'm sorry," she said again, as though she were apologizing for something she hadn't done. "For what?" Liam asked, sitting down across from her. She looked down at her hands, her voice barely a whisper. "For needing help, for being weak." Liam shook his head gently. "There's no shame in needing help. We all need it sometimes." She looked up at him, her eyes full of questions. "And you? You don't mind helping someone like me?" she asked. Liam didn't hesitate. "I don't mind at all. You're not alone in this." The words felt natural to him, but as he said them, he realized they held more truth than he had intended. She wasn't just a stranger he had helped out of kindness. She was someone who had found her way into his life, someone who might be able to help him heal in ways he hadn't expected. As the morning light continued to shine through the windows, Liam realized that this was just the beginning. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face it. He had taken a step into the unknown the night before, and now he would take another, one day at a time. As the days passed, the woman, who Liam had learned was named Sarah, began to slowly recover. Her eyes, once clouded with exhaustion and fear, started to show glimpses of life again. Liam made sure to keep her comfortable, offering her food, a warm bed, and most importantly, the space she needed to heal. His daughter, Emily, had taken an interest in Sarah too, and though she was still cautious, she asked questions, wanting to know more about the woman who had come into their lives so unexpectedly. Liam noticed Emily's curiosity and decided to speak to her one evening when they were alone in the kitchen. "Emily, I know you have a lot of questions about Sarah," Liam said, as he set down a plate of food on the table for her. "But we need to give her some time. She's been through a lot, and she might not be ready to talk just yet." Emily nodded thoughtfully, a look of understanding in her young eyes. "I just don't want her to feel lonely, Daddy," she said softly. Liam's heart ached at the words. Emily had a way of seeing the world that was so pure, so innocent, and it made him realize just how much Sarah needed healing. It wasn't just physical rest that Sarah needed. She had been running from something, but Liam wasn't sure what yet. He had noticed the way she flinched when she heard certain noises or how her eyes would dart around the room, always on alert, as if expecting something bad to happen at any moment. One afternoon, Liam decided to talk to Sarah. He had been careful not to push her, but he felt it was time to understand what had happened to her. He knocked gently on the door to the guest room where she had been staying. "Sarah, do you have a moment?" he asked. She opened the door slowly, her eyes slightly hesitant but warm. "Of course, Liam. What's on your mind?" she asked quietly. "I've been thinking," Liam started, his voice kind but firm. "I know you've been through a lot, and I want to help. But I also want to understand what happened. What brought you here? To my home? To us?" Sarah hesitated, her face shadowed with an emotion Liam couldn't quite name. "I don't remember everything," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I know I was running from something, someone." Liam waited, letting her gather her thoughts. "I was in a bad place," she continued. "I had no one to turn to. No family, no friends. I was stuck." Her voice cracked, and she quickly wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant to be a burden. Liam shook his head, stepping closer. You're not a burden, Sarah, he said gently. You don't need to apologize. You're safe here. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Sarah's eyes met his, a mix of gratitude and vulnerability in her gaze. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. You've given me a second chance. Liam could feel the weight of her words. He wasn't just offering her a place to stay. He was offering her hope, the chance to rebuild her life. He wasn't sure what that would look like, but he knew that it would be different now. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah continued to heal. She would help Liam with small things around the house, and occasionally, she would sit with Emily, helping her with her homework or playing games together. Slowly, she began to fit into their lives, like a missing piece finally finding its place. One evening, after dinner, Liam and Sarah sat on the couch, quietly talking. Emily was already in bed, and the house was peaceful. I'm glad we're doing this, Sarah said quietly, her voice soft but sincere. I didn't expect to find this peace. Liam smiled, his eyes meeting hers. Neither did I, he admitted. But I think we're both finding what we needed. Sarah nodded, her eyes bright with the beginnings of hope. I never thought I'd find a place like this, she said, a place where I'm not just hiding, but actually living again. Liam's heart warmed at her words. It had been a long time since he'd felt like he was truly living. His life had been filled with obligations, responsibilities, and the heavy weight of raising Emily on his own after losing his wife. But with Sarah in their home, things were starting to feel different. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were beginning to live. That night, as Liam lay in bed, his thoughts were filled with the possibilities of the future. He wasn't sure where this path with Sarah would lead, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like it was the right path. Sarah had come into their lives in a moment of uncertainty, but now, she was beginning to become an integral part of their world. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, and there were still many unanswered questions. But Liam knew one thing for sure. He wasn't facing them alone anymore. As weeks passed, the house felt more like a home than ever before. Sarah had become an integral part of Liam and Emily's lives. Though she had started off as a stranger, now she was someone they could rely on. Her healing process was slow, but every day she seemed to grow stronger, more confident, and more comfortable with her new life. Liam noticed the changes in her. She smiled more often, and her eyes no longer carried that same sense of fear. Emily, too, had come to adore Sarah, often seeking her out for help with homework or simply for a chat. One evening, as Liam was finishing up some work at the kitchen table, Emily came running into the room, her face beaming with excitement. Dad, Sarah said she'll take me to the park tomorrow. Can we go, please? Liam smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. He had never seen Emily so excited about something so simple. Of course, sweetheart, he replied. But don't forget to ask Sarah if she's free first. Emily rushed back to the living room, calling out to Sarah. Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of pride watching them. It was clear that Sarah had become more than just a guest in their home, she had become part of their family. But as much as Liam wanted to believe everything was perfect, he couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was still holding Sarah back. Despite her growing bond with Emily and her efforts to help around the house, there were moments when Liam saw her retreat into herself. She would withdraw, her eyes distant, as if the weight of something she wasn't ready to share was still with her. One evening, as they sat down to dinner, Sarah seemed particularly quiet. Emily chatted away, oblivious to the shift in the air, but Liam could feel it. He had come to know Sarah well enough to sense when something was wrong. He decided it was time to ask her again, to gently dig deeper, not out of pressure, but out of concern. After dinner, as Emily cleared the table, Liam sat down next to Sarah on the couch. Sarah, he began softly, I've noticed you've been quieter lately. Is everything okay? Sarah's eyes flickered to him, and for a moment, she didn't respond. He could see her struggle with her emotions, the tension in her shoulders, betraying her calm demeanor. I'm fine, Liam, she said, her voice a little too steady. Just tired, I guess. Liam wasn't convinced. You don't have to hide it from me, you know, he said gently. If something's bothering you, I want to help. I'm here for you. Sarah swallowed hard, her lips pressing together as if she were deciding whether to speak or keep silent. After a long pause, she sighed. It's just, everything is so much better here. But sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for something to go wrong. I don't want to get used to this. I don't want to be happy just to have it all taken away again." Liam's heart broke for her. He could feel the rawness in her words, the fear that had been buried beneath her exterior. He reached out, placing a hand on hers. "You don't have to be afraid, Sarah. You've been through a lot, but you don't have to face this alone. We're not going anywhere. You're part of this family now, and nothing is going to take that away." Sarah looked down at their hands, her fingers trembling slightly, but she didn't pull away. "I don't know how to trust anymore," she whispered. "I've been let down so many times, and every time it's harder to believe in anything good." Liam's grip on her hand tightened. "You don't have to trust everything at once," he said, his voice firm but kind. "Trust takes time, but I promise you, we'll go at your pace. And no matter how long it takes, you're not alone in this." Sarah nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm scared, Liam," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to be okay again." Liam squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It's okay to be scared, but you don't have to face that fear by yourself. We'll help you through it, every step of the way." For the first time in a long while, Sarah allowed herself to lean into the support. She let the tears fall freely, and Liam didn't try to stop them. He simply sat there with her, holding her hand, offering her the comfort she needed. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of doubt and fear, and Sarah would need time to heal fully. But Liam knew one thing: he was committed to being there for her, just as he had promised. As the night stretched on, with the sound of Emily's laughter echoing from the other room, Liam realized that this moment, this quiet conversation, was another step toward healing. It was a reminder that, even in the hardest of times, love and support could make all the difference. And with that, Liam knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, as a family. The following days were filled with both challenges and moments of progress. Sarah had begun to open up more, though slowly. It wasn't easy for her to talk about her past, but little by little, she shared bits and pieces with Liam. They spent quiet evenings talking, and though the conversation was often broken by long silences, there was a sense of comfort between them. Emily had adapted well to the changes too. She still loved having Sarah around, and the two of them had become close. Emily would often help Sarah around the house, and sometimes they'd sit together, drawing or watching movies. It was clear that Sarah was becoming an important figure in Emily's life, and the bond between them was growing stronger. But despite all the progress, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was still being held back. Sarah seemed to be getting better, but there were moments when he saw that same look in her eyes, the one that was full of sadness and fear, as though she were holding something back. He knew that she had suffered in ways he couldn't fully understand, and while he wanted to help her, he also knew that he couldn't push her too fast. One afternoon, when the sun was shining brightly through the living room windows, Liam decided it was time to have another conversation with Sarah. He had seen how hard she was trying, but he also knew that the only way she would truly heal was if she faced whatever it was that still haunted her. He found her sitting on the porch, her face tilted up to the sun, her eyes closed as if trying to soak in every last bit of warmth it offered. He sat down next to her, careful not to disturb the peaceful moment she was having. "Sarah," he began gently, "I've been thinking. I know it's been hard for you, and I just want to make sure you're okay. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything that's been weighing on your mind?" Sarah didn't immediately answer. She continued to sit there, her hands clasped in her lap. Liam could see the way her shoulders tensed, and for a moment he thought she might pull away. But then she sighed deeply, as if releasing a breath she had been holding in for a long time. "It's not easy, Liam," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying so hard to move forward, but sometimes it feels like I'm stuck, like I'm carrying this heavy weight that I can't shake off." Liam nodded, his heart heavy with understanding. He reached over and placed his hand gently on hers, offering a simple gesture of support. "You don't have to do it alone, Sarah. You've come so far already, and I'm proud of you. But you don't have to keep everything inside. If you want to talk, I'm here to listen." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in weeks, she let them fall freely. She turned to him, her voice shaking. "I'm scared, Liam. I'm scared of letting go of the past, scared of trusting again. I've been hurt so many times." and I'm afraid that if I let myself feel too much, it'll all come crashing down." The vulnerability in her voice struck Liam deeply. He could see that she had been through more than anyone should have to endure. And though he wished he could take away her pain, he knew that only she could heal herself, in her own time. "It's okay to be scared," Liam said softly, squeezing her hand. "It's okay to feel everything, even the pain. You don't have to carry it all by yourself. I'm here for you, no matter what." Sarah looked at him, her eyes searching his face for something reassurance, perhaps, or hope. And in that moment, she found it. Slowly, she nodded, as if making a decision in her heart. "I don't know if I can ever forget what happened," she said quietly, "but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to let myself heal, and to trust again. I want to be part of this family." Liam smiled, his heart swelling with warmth. "You already are, Sarah," he said. "You're part of this family, and you always will be." They sat together in silence for a while, just enjoying each other's company. The weight of the past was still there, lingering in the background, but for the first time, Sarah felt a little lighter. She wasn't ready to let go of everything, but she was taking the first steps toward healing. Liam knew there was still a long road ahead, but he also knew they would face it together. Sarah wasn't alone anymore. She had a place here, a place where she could heal and start anew. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah believed that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Days passed, and Sarah's progress seemed to gain new momentum. The weight she had carried for so long was starting to lift, bit by bit. While there were still moments when her past resurfaced, she was learning to face them with more resilience. Liam noticed the changes in her. She smiled more often now, and her eyes no longer carried that haunting fear. Sarah was finding her place within the family, and the once heavy atmosphere in the house was now filled with warmth and quiet laughter. One afternoon, after a long day of errands, Liam came home to find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in front of her, her fingers tracing the rim thoughtfully. Emily was playing in the living room, her joyful laughter filling the air. Liam paused for a moment at the door, observing how peaceful everything had become. But something about Sarah's posture caught his attention. There was a slight tension in her shoulders, a subtle unease that Liam couldn't ignore. He walked over to her and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Hey," he said softly, his voice carrying the concern he always felt for her. "You okay?" Sarah looked up at him, her expression a mix of hesitation and uncertainty. "I don't know, Liam," she admitted, her voice quiet. "I keep trying to move forward, but sometimes I feel like I'm not really moving at all. Like I'm stuck in the past." Liam pulled out the chair beside her and sat down, giving her his full attention. "I know it's not easy," he said, his voice steady. "But you're not stuck, Sarah. You're making progress every day. It might not feel like it sometimes, but I can see it. I see how far you've come." Sarah's eyes filled with unshed tears, and she quickly blinked them away. "I want to believe that," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But it's hard to let go of everything that's happened. I keep thinking, what if it all falls apart again?" Liam's heart went out to her. He could see the fear in her eyes, the fear that had been buried deep within her for so long. He reached over and took her hand in his. "Sarah," he began softly, "no one can predict the future. But what we can control is how we face it. You don't have to let your past define what comes next. You've got us now. You've got me, and you've got Emily. We're not going anywhere. We'll face whatever comes together." Sarah squeezed his hand, her breath shaky as she tried to calm herself. For a moment, she simply sat there, letting the comfort of his words wash over her. It wasn't easy for her to trust again, but in that moment, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future where she wasn't defined by the pain she had endured. The next few days were a turning point for Sarah. She began taking small steps to reclaim parts of herself that had been buried for too long. One morning, she woke up early, just as the sun began to rise, and decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. She had been cooped up in the house for so long, and she felt the need to breathe in the fresh air, to remind herself that there was more to life than the walls she had built around herself. As she walked down the quiet street, she allowed herself to simply be present in the moment. She noticed the birds singing in the trees, the gentle breeze that rustled the leaves, and the peaceful stillness of the morning. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of peace within herself. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from forgetting the past, but the kind that came from accepting it and moving forward despite it. When she returned home, Emily was waiting for her at the door, her face lighting up when she saw Sarah. "Where did you go?" Emily asked, bouncing with excitement. "I just went for a walk," Sarah replied, smiling. "It's a beautiful day outside." Liam stepped into the room, his eyes falling on Sarah as she stood with Emily, both of them sharing a moment of connection. He could see the change in Sarah. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was starting to live again. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly, his voice full of warmth. Sarah looked at him, her smile soft but genuine. "Thank you," she replied, "for everything." The evening went by peacefully, with the three of them sitting together for dinner, sharing stories, and laughing. It was a simple evening, but it felt like a significant step in Sarah's journey. She was no longer the woman who had walked into Liam's life, broken and lost. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone who was finally starting to believe that she deserved happiness. As the day came to a close, Liam felt a sense of quiet contentment. The road ahead was still uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. Together, they would face whatever came next. And for Sarah, the healing had only just begun. As the weeks went by, life began to settle into a new routine. Sarah, though still cautious at times, had made incredible progress. She spent more time with Emily, and the two of them formed a bond that was as natural as it was heartwarming. Liam couldn't remember the last time he had seen his daughter so happy, and it filled him with a quiet joy. Still, despite the peace they had found together, there was something unsettling beneath the surface. Liam noticed Sarah becoming more withdrawn again, especially after a phone call she had taken in private one evening. She had stepped outside to answer the call, and when she returned, her face was pale, her eyes distant. It didn't take long for Liam to realize that Sarah was hiding something. He could see it in her eyes, the same fear, the same uncertainty that had haunted her when she first arrived. It was clear that whatever was weighing on her was not something she could face alone, but Liam also knew that pushing her wouldn't help. He had to wait for her to be ready. But then, a few days later, everything changed. It started with a knock on the door late one evening. Liam opened it to find a man standing on the porch, looking anxious and out of place. "Can I help you?" Liam asked, his tone cautious. The man, dressed in a dark suit and tie, looked like he had been in a hurry. "I'm looking for Sarah," he said, his voice tight. "Sarah?" Liam repeated, confused. "Do you know her?" The man nodded. "Yes, I'm here about a matter that needs to be addressed." Liam's instincts immediately kicked in, and a wave of protectiveness swept over him. "I'm afraid Sarah's not available right now," he said firmly. "Is there something I can do for you?" The man hesitated for a moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he spoke again, his words coming slowly. "I'm from her past," he said, almost in a whisper. "And I need to speak with her. It's important." Liam's heart dropped. He could feel the tension rising in his chest. Whoever this man was, he clearly wasn't someone Sarah wanted around. "I'm afraid you'll have to leave," Liam said, his voice growing sterner. "Sarah is safe here, and I won't let anyone from her past come and disrupt that." The man's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Liam thought he might argue. But then, to his surprise, he simply nodded. "I understand," the man said quietly, "but please tell her. I didn't mean for things to get this complicated." With that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Liam stood in the doorway, his mind racing. Who was that man, and what did he want with Sarah? He hadn't heard her speak about anyone from her past, and he knew that whatever had just happened had shaken her. As the night wore on, Liam tried to push the encounter out of his mind, but it lingered like a dark cloud hanging over him. He knew he needed to speak to Sarah, but he also knew that now wasn't the right time. The next morning, Sarah was quiet, and Liam could see the change in her demeanor immediately. She was more distant, more withdrawn. He could feel the walls she had built up around herself returning, and it hurt to see her go through that again. He waited for the right moment, knowing that pushing her to talk before she was ready would only make things worse. Later that afternoon, as the sun began to set, Liam found Sarah sitting alone on the porch. He walked over to her and sat beside her in silence for a few moments. Finally, he spoke. "Sarah," he said gently, "I know something happened last night. Someone came by looking for you. Do you want to talk about it?" Sarah's body stiffened, and her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She didn't look at him right away, but after a long pause, she finally spoke. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she whispered. "It's someone from my past. Someone I thought I had left behind." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I ran from him once, and I thought I was free, but I guess he's not done with me yet." Liam felt a pang of worry in his chest. "Who is he? What does he want with you?" Sarah shook her head slowly. "It's complicated," she said, her voice trembling. "He's someone I thought I could trust once, but he turned into something else. He's not someone I want in my life anymore, but I'm afraid he won't let me go." Liam's heart ached for her. He could see the fear in her eyes, the pain that she had been carrying all along. He reached over and took her hand, holding it gently. "You don't have to face this alone, Sarah. Whatever he wants, we'll deal with it. But you're safe here. No one is going to hurt you again, not while I'm around." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and sorrow. "I don't know what I did to deserve your kindness," she whispered, "but thank you for being here." Liam squeezed her hand, offering her the reassurance she needed. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. "We're family, and I'll protect you, no matter what comes next." As Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, Liam knew that this was far from over. The past had come knocking at their door, but together, they would face whatever came next, no matter how difficult it might be. The days that followed were filled with tension, as Sarah's past seemed to close in on her once again. After the unexpected visit from the man, she had become more reserved, her mind constantly occupied by thoughts of what he might do next. Liam could see the change in her, the fear that had resurfaced in her eyes. She was trying to keep her composure, but he knew something was still weighing heavily on her heart. Sarah had always been a fighter, but the events of her past had scarred her in ways that were not easily healed. Liam was determined to be there for her, to protect her from whatever danger was lurking in the shadows. One evening, after a particularly quiet dinner, Liam couldn't stand the silence anymore. He could feel the distance between them growing, the unspoken words hanging in the air. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees, staring out the window. He knew she was thinking about the man who had come to their door, the one who was tied to the past she was trying so hard to escape. He sat down beside her, his presence offering a quiet reassurance. "Sarah," Liam began softly, "I know you've been through a lot, and I know that whatever happened with him is still on your mind. But you don't have to carry this burden alone." Sarah turned to him, her eyes filled with pain. "I've tried so hard to forget, Liam," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But it's like every time I start to move forward, something pulls me back. I don't want him in my life anymore. I don't want him to have any power over me, but I'm scared. I don't know what he'll do." Liam reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "You're safe here," he reassured her. "No one is going to hurt you. I won't let that happen." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and fear. "I want to believe that," she said quietly, "but I don't know if I can." Liam squeezed her hand, his heart aching for her. He understood her fear, but he also knew that she was stronger than she realized. It would take time, but he was confident that she would find her way back to herself. As the days passed, Liam continued to watch over Sarah, offering her the space she needed while also providing a steady presence in her life. He could see that she was struggling, but he also saw moments of hope. She was starting to reclaim pieces of herself that had been lost for so long. One afternoon, Liam received a call from his lawyer. It was about the man who had shown up at their door. The conversation was brief, but it was enough to send a chill down Liam's spine. The man, whose name turned out to be Nathan, had a history of manipulation and coercion. He had been a part of Sarah's life in a way that Liam couldn't fully understand, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't going to let Nathan get anywhere near Sarah again. The lawyer told Liam that Nathan had been trying to contact Sarah through various means, including sending letters and making threats. He had even tried to track her down through social media, though Sarah had blocked him from all platforms. Liam's protective instincts flared. He couldn't allow Sarah to live in fear any longer. That night, after Emily had gone to bed, Liam sat down with Sarah to have a serious conversation. He had gathered all the information he could, and now it was time to take action. "Sarah, I just spoke with my lawyer," Liam said, his voice steady but firm. "Nathan's been trying to contact you. He's been sending letters, making threats. I'm not going to let him get to you." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Liam took a deep breath. "We need to make sure he can't get to you anymore. We're going to take legal action. I'm going to put together a restraining order, and we'll make sure he knows that you're off limits. He's not going to be able to contact you again." Sarah's face softened, a small sigh of relief escaping her lips. "I didn't know what to do," she admitted. "I've been so scared, but I didn't want to drag you into this. I didn't want to put you at risk." Liam shook his head. "You're not alone in this, Sarah. We'll face it together, and I promise, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you're safe. No one is going to hurt you again." The conversation brought a sense of relief to Sarah, but it also reminded her of just how much she had been through. She wasn't ready to confront everything just yet, but Liam's unwavering support gave her hope that she could start to rebuild her life. In the days that followed, Liam worked closely with his lawyer to put the necessary legal measures in place. He also made sure to keep an eye on Sarah, constantly checking in with her and offering his support. Sarah began to feel a little lighter, knowing that she had a plan in place and that Liam was by her side. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that she could move forward. As the sun set on another quiet evening, Sarah sat on the porch, her eyes gazing at the horizon. She still had a long way to go, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she wasn't facing them alone anymore. With Liam and Emily by her side, she knew she could make it through. The days following the decision to take legal action were filled with a renewed sense of purpose for Sarah, but the weight of her past still lingered. Liam had followed through with getting the restraining order in place, and Nathan, the man who had been part of Sarah's painful past, had been officially warned to stay away. Though it didn't erase the fear that had taken root in Sarah's heart, it gave her a sense of security, something she had been missing for so long. As much as she appreciated Liam's protection, she couldn't help but feel guilty. She didn't want to be a burden on him, especially after everything he had already done for her. But Liam, unwavering as always, reassured her daily that they were in this together. One afternoon, after Liam returned from an important meeting, he found Sarah sitting by the window, looking out at the yard, her thoughts seemingly far away. The house felt quieter now that Emily was at school, and the stillness was both comforting and unsettling at the same time. Liam could tell that Sarah was wrestling with something inside her. He walked over and sat beside her, his presence a steady calm. "Hey, how are you doing?" he asked gently, his voice filled with warmth and concern. Sarah didn't immediately respond. She continued to stare out at the garden, her fingers absently tracing the edge of the windowsill. After a moment, she sighed, her breath shaky. "I don't know, Liam," she said, her voice low. "I thought I was getting better, but then I find myself feeling guilty, like I'm asking for too much. You've already done so much for me, and I don't know how to move past this." Liam's heart tightened. He could see the struggle in her eyes. "You don't need to apologize, Sarah. You're not a burden. What happened to you, it wasn't your fault. You didn't ask for any of it, and you deserve to heal." Sarah's lips trembled, and for a moment, Liam thought she might cry. "I know you're saying that because you care, but it's hard to believe it. I've been so broken for so long. It feels like I'm asking too much to want a chance at happiness, to want something better." Liam placed a hand on hers, his fingers warm and steady against hers. "You deserve happiness, Sarah," he said firmly. "You've been through more than anyone should have to endure, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve peace, love, and a fresh start. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for what everyone deserves." Sarah's eyes welled with tears, and she bit her lip to keep them from falling. She didn't want to show weakness again, not after everything she had been through. But it was impossible to hold it all in anymore. The tears came anyway, soft and uncontrollable. Liam didn't hesitate. He reached out and gently pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried. He knew how much she had been holding back, and as much as he wanted to fix everything for her, he knew this was something only she could face. But he was there for her. He would always be there. Sarah clung to him for a moment longer before pulling back, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to fall apart." Liam smiled softly, his thumb brushing away the last of her tears. "There's no need to apologize," he said gently. "You don't have to be perfect, Sarah. You just have to be you. And right now, I'm just happy that you're here with us, safe and healing." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, she felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. It wasn't gone entirely, but it was lighter. She wasn't carrying it alone anymore. The next day, Sarah decided to take another step forward. She didn't want to be stuck in the past, and though the fear still lingered, she was ready to start looking toward the future. After Emily came home from school, Sarah suggested they go out for a walk in the park together. It was something simple, but for Sarah, it felt like a monumental step in the right direction. As they walked through the park, the sun shining brightly above, Sarah felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in a long time. She wasn't running from her past anymore. She was facing it, step by step. Emily skipped ahead of them, her laughter filling the air as she ran toward the swings. Liam walked beside Sarah, his presence a constant source of strength. "I know it's not easy," he said, his voice soft. "But you're doing great. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward healing." Sarah smiled at him, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, Liam," she said quietly, "for everything." They continued walking in silence for a while, just enjoying the peaceful afternoon. For the first time in a long time, Sarah allowed herself to believe that she was capable of healing, that she could have a future beyond the fear and the pain. The past would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined her. As they watched Emily play on the swings, laughing and shouting with joy, Sarah knew that, with time, she would find a way to move forward. The road ahead would still be difficult, but she wasn't walking it alone. And that, more than anything, gave her the courage to face whatever came next. As the weeks went on, Sarah began to adjust to her new life more and more each day. Her relationship with Liam and Emily grew stronger, and though there were still moments of uncertainty, she was beginning to find peace. The days in the park, the quiet conversations in the evenings, and the small yet meaningful steps forward in her healing process, all began to add up. Liam noticed the change in her. Her once guarded eyes now had a spark of hope, and her smile, though still soft, had become a little brighter. Emily continued to thrive with Sarah's presence in her life, and Liam couldn't help but feel grateful that they had found each other. It wasn't just Sarah finding a place in their home. It was Sarah finding her place in the world again. However, despite the progress, Liam knew they weren't out of the woods yet. He had witnessed the pain Sarah had gone through, and while she was moving forward, there were still shadows from her past that occasionally crept in. One morning, as the sun filtered through the kitchen window, Liam found Sarah sitting at the table, staring down at her hands. The worry lines that had softened over the past few weeks had returned, and her shoulders were slightly hunched, as though the weight of something was pressing on her again. Liam walked over, his heart heavy with concern. "Sarah, what's going on?" he asked gently. Sarah looked up, her eyes tired but determined. "I got a call today," she said, her voice low. "It was from someone I never expected to hear from again." Liam sat down beside her, his hand resting on the table. "Who was it?" Sarah took a deep breath. "It was my old landlord. He said that there's some legal matter he needs to discuss, but he didn't give me any details." She paused for a moment, her fingers twisting nervously. "I don't want to go back to that life, Liam. I don't want to face anyone from that time again." Liam could see the fear in her eyes, the fear of returning to a world that had once held so much pain for her. He could feel the tension in her body as she relived those dark memories. "You don't have to go back there, Sarah," Liam reassured her. "I'll be with you, every step of the way. We'll handle this together." Sarah nodded, though the unease in her chest didn't fade. She wasn't sure how she would face whatever was coming, but she knew that Liam was right. She wasn't alone anymore. The thought of having someone by her side, someone she could trust, made all the difference. Later that afternoon, Sarah reluctantly agreed to meet with her old landlord, though she had insisted that Liam accompany her. When they arrived at the office, the old landlord greeted them with a cold smile. His office smelled faintly of stale coffee, and the dim lighting cast long shadows across the room. He didn't seem like the type of man who could offer any kind of comfort, and Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she sat down across from him. "I don't want any trouble," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. The landlord's smile faded slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Trouble? You think I'm here to cause trouble?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "No, I'm here because you owe me money. You think you can just disappear without paying your debt?" Sarah flinched, the memories of her old life threatening to resurface. Liam could see how much the man's words were affecting her, and he immediately stepped in. "What exactly are you trying to say?" Liam asked, his voice calm but firm. The landlord sat back in his chair, his expression changing to one of mild amusement. "It's simple," he said, tapping a pen against the desk. "Sarah owes me for the rent she didn't pay before she left, and if she doesn't pay up, I'll take legal action. I'm not letting her walk away from this." Liam's jaw tightened. He could feel the anger rising within him, but he kept his tone measured. "Sarah doesn't owe you anything," he said coldly. "She left because she had to get away from a situation that was harmful to her. You should be ashamed of yourself, coming here and trying to take advantage of her when she's trying to rebuild her life." The landlord's face reddened with anger. "This is a business matter, not a pity party," he snapped. "She owes me what she owes me, and I intend to get it." Sarah's hands trembled in her lap as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. She could feel the panic rising in her chest, but Liam's hand on hers grounded her. He was there, and he wasn't going to let her face this alone. "You're not getting a penny from her," Liam said, standing up. "And if you continue with this nonsense, we'll take legal action of our own. You're not going to ruin her life again." The landlord's eyes flicked to Liam's, and for a moment, there was a dangerous tension in the air. But then, with a final sneer, he stood up and walked to the door. "You'll regret this," he muttered, his voice full of malice. "This isn't over." As the door slammed shut behind him, Sarah let out a shaky breath, her body sagging with relief. She had expected the worst, but she had survived. And she had survived with Liam by her side. "You did great," Liam said quietly, his arm around her as they left the office. "He's not going to get away with it." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the situation finally start to lift. She wasn't defined by her past anymore. And with Liam by her side, she was finally starting to believe that she could build a future, one step at a time. After the confrontation with the landlord, Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders, but the battle was far from over. She knew that things weren't going to be smooth sailing from here on out. The landlord's warning echoed in her mind, and despite Liam's confidence, she couldn't help but feel a lingering anxiety. However, she wasn't alone anymore. Liam had proven that time and time again. He had shown her that she could face her past and stand tall. As the days passed, Sarah started taking small steps to reclaim her life. She decided to go back to work, even though the thought of being in public again made her nervous. It wasn't that she was afraid of the work itself, but the possibility of running into someone from her past haunted her. Still, she knew that she had to try. She couldn't keep hiding away forever. Liam supported her every step of the way. He offered to drive her to her job the first day, but Sarah insisted she could manage on her own. She needed to prove to herself that she was capable. The morning of her first day back at work, Sarah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her clothes. She didn't recognize the woman staring back at her. The person who had walked into this house months ago was broken, afraid, and unsure of her future. But the woman she saw now was stronger, more confident, and determined. She wasn't defined by her past. As Sarah walked out the door, Liam was waiting for her, a warm smile on his face. He reached out to give her a quick hug, a silent promise that he was there if she needed him. "You've got this," he said. "Just remember, you're not alone." Sarah nodded, feeling the support radiate from him. It was strange how simple words could make her feel like she could take on the world. The day at work went better than she expected. There were moments of hesitation when she felt the weight of her past creeping in, but each time she pushed through it. She was determined to not let her history define her present. Her co-workers were welcoming, and it felt good to be back in a routine. When the workday ended, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had done it. She had faced her fear and had come out the other side stronger. On the drive home, she reflected on how far she had come. The road ahead was still uncertain. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She had people in her life who cared about her. And that made all the difference. When Sarah arrived home, Emily greeted her with a big hug, excited to hear about her day. "How was work, Sarah?" she asked eagerly. "It was good, kiddo," Sarah replied, smiling. "I think I'm going to like it." Emily beamed at her. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Sarah realized how much she had missed this feeling like she was part of something, part of a family. Liam walked into the room just then, his expression softening when he saw Sarah. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "I knew you could do it." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She had been so afraid of failing, of not being enough, but here she was, taking charge of her life once more. "Thank you, Liam," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't think I could have done it without you." That night, as the family sat down to dinner, Sarah couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She wasn't where she wanted to be yet, but she was on the path to healing, and that was enough for now. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into this home months ago. She had found strength in places she never knew existed, and with Liam and Emily by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah continued to grow more confident in herself. She learned to trust again, to open up about her fears, and to lean on those who cared for her. There were still moments when the weight of her past tried to pull her back, but she no longer felt helpless. She was in control of her future. One evening, as Sarah and Liam sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sarah took a deep breath and spoke softly. "I think I'm finally starting to believe that I can move forward," she said. "I'm not there yet, but I feel like I'm getting closer." Liam smiled at her, his eyes full of pride. "You've already come so far," he said, "and I know you'll keep going." Sarah smiled back, her heart swelling with warmth. She had a long way to go, but for the first time, she believed that she could heal. With each step forward, she was leaving the past behind, and for the first time in a long time, she was starting to feel free. Months passed, and the journey Sarah had embarked on continued to unfold in surprising, yet beautiful ways. The woman who had once walked through Liam's door in fear and uncertainty was no longer the same person. She had faced her past, walked through her pain, and now stood tall as someone who had reclaimed her life. There were still challenges, of course. There were days when the weight of her past would resurface, but with each passing day, she learned to navigate it with strength and resilience. Liam had been her constant, her unwavering support. Emily had been her joy, a reminder of the goodness in the world, and slowly, Sarah was allowing herself to believe that she too deserved that goodness. One evening, as the family sat together for dinner, Sarah felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. The warmth in the room, the laughter shared between Liam and Emily. It was everything she had longed for, but never believed she would have. She had built a life here, and it was a life she never thought possible. After dinner, Liam and Sarah went for a walk together, hand in hand, their steps slow and steady as they enjoyed the peaceful evening. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. It felt like a dream, the life they had created together, and Sarah couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by how far she had come. "I never thought I'd get here," Sarah said softly, her voice full of emotion. "I never thought I'd be able to heal, to be happy again. But here I am." Liam smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "You did the hard work, Sarah. You faced your fears, and you didn't back down. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." Sarah looked at him, her heart full of love and gratitude. "And I couldn't have done it without you," she said. "I don't know where I'd be without you and Emily." Liam chuckled, pulling her closer as they walked. "We're a family," he said simply. "We face everything together." As they reached the park near their home, they sat on a bench, watching as the last traces of sunlight faded into the night. The peaceful quiet around them seemed to reflect the calmness they had both found. Sarah leaned her head on Liam's shoulder, feeling a deep sense of peace she had never known before. "Do you ever think about the future?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What it holds for us?" Liam turned his head to look at her, his eyes warm with affection. "I think about it all the time," he said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "The future is full of possibilities, Sarah. I don't know exactly what it will bring, but I do know that as long as we're together, it will be a future worth having." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with hope. She didn't know exactly what the future held either, but for the first time, she felt excited to find out. The road had been long and difficult, but it had led her here, to this moment of peace and hope. And as she looked at Liam, with Emily by their side, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Sarah allowed herself to believe that the future could be filled with love, happiness, and the promise of new beginnings. She wasn't running from her past anymore. She had embraced it, faced it head-on, and had come out the other side stronger than ever. The past no longer defined her. It was the present and the future that held her heart. She was no longer just surviving, she was truly living, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah allowed herself to dream. She dreamed of a life full of love, peace, and happiness, a life she never thought was possible, but one that was now within her reach. As Liam wrapped his arm around her, Sarah closed her eyes, letting the cool night air wash over her. She was finally home. In this heartfelt millionaire story, witness the transformative journey of a woman escaping her troubled past and finding new hope through unexpected kindness. Sarah, once broken and lost, is taken in by a millionaire single dad, Liam, who offers her a fresh start. As Sarah navigates her healing, she builds a new life with Liam and his daughter, Emily, finding love, support, and the strength to overcome her fears. As the story unfolds, we see Sarah face her past, from an abusive landlord to moments of uncertainty. But through it all, Liam stands by her side, proving that love can heal even the deepest wounds. This is one of those powerful millionaire stories that shows how sometimes the greatest wealth comes not from money, but from the love and kindness shared between people. As Sarah grows stronger, she begins to believe in herself, her future, and the love that surrounds her. In the end, Sarah's transformation is a testament to the life-changing power of love. And this millionaire story is a shining example of how the past doesn't have to define your future. These millionaire stories remind us that despite the challenges we face, the support of those who truly care can lead us to a life of happiness and peace. Watch this emotional journey of love, courage, and new beginnings in this unforgettable millionaire story.